I decided to wear white for this video because Moon Knight wears white. But there's one thing missing. Now I'm ready.
We'll fight together.
I have to finish this.
Moon Knight went 5 for 5 with no filler episodes and no pacing issues, and so as I went into the finale, I was thinking, they have to screw this up at some point, right? And while I know a lot of people think they dropped the ball with this episode, I think that they really did stick the landing. There shouldn't be any confusion about what's going on in Moon Knight episode 6. Good guy versus bad guy, final duel. Pretty self-explanatory, you shouldn't need me to tell you that, but a lot of really cool stuff does happen in this episode. Is it perfect? No. But it's so good I'm almost willing to look past the flaws it has because I love it that much. But let's talk about it. I would like to single out 2 performances in this episode. I always talk about Oscar Isaac, so I'm actually not going to directly reference him here because, I mean, yes, he does great. But the 2 people I really do want to point out, Ethan Hawke as Arthur Harrow, fan-flippantastic in this episode and the show in general. But I was like, I really want to take a moment to just talk about how great Ethan Hawke is in this show. And also, May Calamawy as Layla. Holy shit. She gets to do some cool stuff in this episode. She gives a great performance, and like I can't wait until spoilers to talk about what her character got to do in this episode. I loved it. There were a lot of storylines that needed to be wrapped up. It's one of the things people were worried about because the Marvel shows have this tendency to put way too much stuff in so that they don't have enough time to wrap it all up in the finale. It's a big issue they've had in basically every show they've done. I think they do it pretty well here. Some storylines are obviously the focus or the forefront, and some of them take more of a back burner. And there's one in particular that the way this storyline is resolved, it is resolved in sort of a way where they resolve it by not resolving it. They imply things where the viewer kind of has to piece it together and they don't give you all the answers. And originally when that happened, I'm trying very hard not to spoil what it is, but when that happened, I was like, I don't know if I like that. But now that I've had time to process the episode, I've come to terms with it, and I'm like, oh, that's actually kind of cool. They don't have to tie up everything perfectly. They leave some stuff up to interpretation, which is another thing this episode does really well. They tie it all up in a way where they can end it after this season, but there's also enough open-ended that they can continue it if they want to do a season 2 at some point in the future. And golly, I hope they do. They probably won't because they submitted it as a limited series. And when you do that, you cannot do a season 2. I still want them to do a season 2. But as I mentioned, this episode's not perfect, but I'm also kind of willing to look past it because I loved everything about this show so much. And, part of a review is my personal enjoyment of it, and my enjoyment is higher up than my gripes. So even though the episode has issues that I'm about to talk about, I don't really care. So the main problem with this episode is a small bit of a pacing issue, mainly near the end, but you can feel it throughout the entire episode. And I think the issue with that lies in the format of these shows. I plan on making a video about this because it really bothers me. The 6-episode format just does not work. I don't think. Most of the shows have either needed to be a movie or needed to be more episodes. They really have not had a show so far, maybe with the exception of Loki, that needed to be the exact number of episodes it was. They have so many length and pacing issues in these shows that they need to stop with the 6-episode time constraint. It's ridiculous. This finale could have been 2 episodes because there's some things I probably would have liked them to explore more that they didn't get to explore because they had 45 minutes or whatever to wrap it all up. And I think the biggest the biggest piece of evidence of this pacing issue lies with something that happens at the end, where a certain character does something that feels out of character because they didn't really have time to explore that too much. But damn, it still did work as one episode. I want to emphasize that. Even though I have issues, this is still just as a single episode. It's great. It's a great finale. And the last thing to note is that there is a post-credit scene in this one. So, there you go. Okay, that's all I wanted to go around spoilers. It's a very hard episode to not talk to not give spoilers for. So I just touched on a couple things I really want to touch on there. Now I'm going to touch on some spoiler things I want to touch on. As usual, not everything, just some of the things I really want to talk about. So if you have not seen it yet, don't watch this. Watch Moon Knight instead. Everyone wants to talk about the post-credit scene, so I'll do that later. What I want to start off by talking about is the scene with Mark and Steven in the duat, because holy shit, that was good. Mark is like, no, I can't go without Steven. And so he goes back. And this is where I would have liked 2 episodes, because I would have liked to have some time of Mark being in the field of reeds by himself before deciding he needs to go back for Steven, but whatever. He goes back for Steven. And he has this great speech he gives to Steven, and he says the greatest line of this entire show. He says, "You are the only real superpower I ever had." And then because he's in the sands of the duat, he turns to stone, and I guess him finally giving that little confession balanced their souls, and boom, they're back, and they just go back into the land of the living like that, thanks to Taweret, who helps them by sailing the boat into a giant sand wave to clear a little path for him. And he comes back, and Khonshu immediately senses it, who Layla freed, thank you Layla, and also declined to be his avatar, which is important in a little bit. And boom, we get an awesome suit-up scene. Every time Moon Knight suits up, I get chills. I was on the edge of my seat in this one. I texted my friend in all caps, "He's back." I was so happy. It was great. Now, the 2 things I really dug in this are that he stayed in costume most of the time. Once he came back, he was in the costume up until like one of the final scenes, which was cool. And then 2, I like that Layla got powers. She got in on the action. So she became Taweret's avatar, to my knowledge. And she got like better Golden Eagle armor than Wonder Woman did. And my one worry when she got her powers was that actually it started when Khonshu asked if she'll be the avatar, and that continued when she got her powers. My worry was that Layla would come in and save the day. But no, Moon Knight and Mr. Knight are still the people, or I guess everyone in Mark's mind, because someone else was helping him out in there too. But they're the ones that saved the day, right? The title character still gets the big shining moment. And speaking of Moon Knight and Mr. Knight, now that they switch, it's so cool because they'll just flip on a whim whenever they want because they're tight now, they're bros. And that fight scene was so cool. The Moon Knight and Mr. Knight fight scene where they were going through and they were switching and taking people out. And Steven kicks ass now. And Moon Knight did that thing. He jumps over the car and throws his 2 moon things out like that. Thoroughly entertained. That was a great fight scene. Part of the reason I want a 2nd season is that now that we've explored so much of the backstory between Steven and Mark, I want more ass-kicking Moon Knight. And part of the episode that did feel a little rushed, I think, was Harrow's defeat, because Harrow's kicking Moon Knight's ass, and Jake Lockley comes in last second. We don't see him. He does it off screen. Beats Harrow off screen. I'm like, damn, all right. And then they bring him to this like temple thing where Mark and Layla trap Amit inside of Harrow because, oh yeah, I didn't mention, Amit comes out, they free her, and then she eats all these souls, and boom, she's big, and Khonshu's big. We're having a kaiju fight that I thought would ruin it, but surprisingly didn't. I loved the shot where you had the giant gods fighting in the background, and then Harrow and Moon Knight in the foreground, all small. That was so cool. Yeah, and then the temple, Mark refuses to kill Harrow, which I felt was weird, because Mark hasn't really had an issue with killing thus far. He doesn't love a bloodbath like Jake Lockley, but he kills when he has to. And in this, he's like, no, I'm good. I'm not gonna do that. But then we get the post-credit scene where someone ties up that loose end because Harrow is now in the same mental hospital and he's getting wheeled through and it's just everyone's dead and he gets in a car, Conchu's in the car, talks, window rolls down, Jake Lockley's there, speaks a bit of Spanish, puts 3 bullets in Hera, boom. End of the show. So there's a bad guy, basically a bad guy, living in Mark's body. I want a season 2, so we can explore that. Mark and Steven versus Jake Lockley. That's so cool. And so it leads to a bunch of theorizing as to what exactly was Jake. So I think every bloodbath in the show was Jake Lockley. In the first couple episodes, it would flash from Steven, and then it would flash back to Steven, and it was just carnage everywhere. That doesn't seem like Mark's style. I think all of that was Jake Lockley from the get-go. And so we actually saw more Jake than we thought we did. And I like that they do leave it up to interpretation for you to try to figure out what exactly was Jake versus Mark throughout the show. And this is why I say that they leave enough on the table to revisit it, but also tie it up enough, because you don't need a second season. Everyone wants a second season. I'm going to say you need a second season in the sense that you need to see the story continue because they opened up a new story at the end. But they did cap it in a way that if they definitively say, no, we're not doing a second season, there is enough in there for you to kind of figure out how that goes. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. But it does. It's open-ended interpretation, which is pretty cool because it keeps you thinking about the show. That said, give me a second season, Marvel. Alright, that's it. That's all I want to talk about for Moon Knight. What did you guys think of the finale? I loved it. They knocked this show out of the park. It's my new favorite MCU Disney Plus show. So, what were your thoughts? Let me know down in the comments below. Also, leave a like on this video, subscribe, click on the bell icon to receive all notifications from the MCU HQ. That's going to be it. Have a great day, guys.